Her husband sold her for giving birth to a girl, thrown away like she was nothing, her newborn daughter deemed worthless by the man who swore to protect them both. But at the slave auction, where death seemed certain, the most feared Alpha King in all the territories did something no one expected. He bought her, not as a servant, not as a toy, but for reasons even he couldn't explain. She thought she'd traded one prison for another, until the ruthless king showed her kindness she'd never known, until his touch awakened something impossible, a power sleeping in her blood that shouldn't exist. But when her ex-husband returns with proof of ownership and the king's bride-to-be arrives carrying his heir, she faces an unbearable choice. Now, with her daughter's life hanging in the balance and a forbidden bond pulling her toward the one man she can't have, will the Alpha King's protection save her, or will loving him destroy everything? This space is built on something simple and enduring, the power of love, the truth and kindness, and the belief that quiet care can still change lives. The birthing chamber of the Silver Moon Pack House echoed with Seraphina's exhausted breaths as she finally held her newborn daughter in her trembling arms. After 20 hours of grueling labor, the tiny bundle against her chest made every moment of pain worth it. Luna, she had decided to name her, for the perfect crescent birthmark that graced the infant's shoulder. "She's beautiful," Seraphina whispered, tracing her finger along her daughter's delicate features. The baby's eyes, still new to the world, blinked up at her with an uncanny awareness that made Seraphina's heart swell. Her moment of peace shattered as the door burst open, crashing against the stone wall. Marcus stormed in, his face contorted with a rage that made the pack midwives shrink back into the shadows. Seraphina instinctively curled around Luna, her body still weak from childbirth. "A girl?" Marcus snarled, his eyes flashing with contempt as he loomed over them. "You gave me a worthless female?" "Please, Marcus," Seraphina pleaded, her voice hoarse. "She's healthy and strong. Look at her." "Silence." His hand struck the wooden bedpost, splintering it. 5 years I waited. 5 years I tolerated your weakness, thinking you would at least give me a son to secure my position. Now you've cost me everything." Seraphina tried to reason with him, even as her heart hammered in terror. A daughter can be just as... Marcus grabbed her arm, yanking her from the blood-stained bed. Seraphina cried out in pain, her body still torn and bleeding from giving birth. Luna whimpered against her chest, but somehow didn't wail as her mother stumbled. "A female heir is worse than no heir at all," Marcus spat, dragging them through the packhouse corridors. "You failed me for the last time." The midwives watched helplessly, their heads bowed in submission to their beta's authority. No one dared intervene as Marcus hauled his mate and newborn child out into the cold night air. A large cage wagon waited in the courtyard, already holding several dejected wolves, the defective ones Marcus had deemed unworthy of pack status. Seraphina recognized some as wolves who had challenged his cruel policies or failed to meet his impossible standards. "You belong with the other worthless ones," Marcus growled, throwing them roughly into the metal cage. Seraphina managed to twist her body to protect Luna from the impact, her own shoulder taking the brunt of the fall. Through tears of pain and heartbreak, Seraphina watched as Marcus turned to the slave trader waiting nearby. "Take them far from here. I don't care where, just make sure they never return." The wagon lurched forward, its wheels crunching over gravel. Seraphina pressed herself against the cold bars, watching as the only home she'd known for 5 years grew smaller in the distance. The pack house where she'd served as a devoted mate, endured Marcus's abuse, and dreamed of earning his love. All of it meant nothing compared to his burning ambition to become Alpha. Luna stirred against her chest, and Seraphina looked down at her daughter's face. Despite everything, the baby remained eerily calm, as if she understood the need for quiet. Seraphina's tears fell onto Luna's forehead as she whispered, "I'm so sorry, my little one. I thought if I just loved him enough, if I was perfect enough." The other wolves in the cage kept their distance, recognizing a mother's need to grieve. As the wagon rolled through the midnight forest, Seraphina's blood slowly stained her thin birthing gown, her physical pain, nothing compared to the agony of Marcus's betrayal. 5 years of walking on eggshells, of trying to be the perfect mate, of enduring his temper and manipulation, all cast aside because she had given him a daughter instead of a son. The Silver Moon Pack House disappeared behind the trees, and with it, every false hope Seraphina had clung to about Marcus's capacity for love. She held Luna closer, feeling her daughter's steady heartbeat against her own. Whatever fate awaited them now, at least they would face it together. 3 days of jostling travel had left Seraphina barely conscious. Her birthing wounds, untreated and exposed to the filthy cage, burned with infection. She hadn't eaten since Luna's birth, saving the meager scraps of bread tossed into the cage for the other wolves who helped shield her and the baby from the worst of the elements. The wagon finally creaked to a halt in a vast underground cavern. The Shadow Market. Even in her weakened state, Seraphina's nose wrinkled at the overwhelming stench of dark magic, blood, and desperation that permeated the air. Torches cast eerie shadows on rough stone walls, illuminating rows of cages filled with supernatural beings awaiting auction. Move. A guard struck the cage with his silver-tipped prod, making the wolves inside flinch. Seraphina stumbled as they were herded onto a crude wooden platform. Luna, somehow still quiet, despite days without proper food or care, pressed closer to her mother's chest. The auctioneer, a greasy-haired man with yellowed teeth, grabbed Seraphina's chin. Next up, a fresh breeding failure and her worthless pup? His announcement drew cruel laughter from the crowd. Still bleeding from birth, this one is, but young enough to try again with a stronger male. Bidding starts at 50 gold pieces. Seraphina's legs trembled as she stood before the jeering audience. Vampires, dark fae, and corrupt werewolves filled the auction hall, their eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Her heart nearly stopped when a vampire lord in blood-red robes raised his hand. 100 gold, he called out, licking his fangs. The child would make a sweet appetizer. Seraphina's wolf howled in maternal fury, but her body was too weak to respond. She could only clutch Luna tighter, praying for a miracle. Suddenly, an overwhelming presence flooded the chamber. The very air grew heavy with alpha power, forcing everyone, even the vampire lord, to their knees. Only Seraphina remained standing, though not by choice. Her legs simply refused to move. King Theron entered the auction hall like a storm-given form. His massive frame, draped in formal black clothing that did nothing to hide his warrior's build, commanded immediate attention, but it was his eyes that held Seraphina transfixed, amber irises blazing with inner fire, marking him as the most powerful alpha of the age. The crowd's silence was absolute as Theron strode forward. His gaze locked onto Seraphina, and something shifted in his stern expression. His wolf, dormant for decades according to legend, visibly stirred beneath his skin. "Your Majesty," the auctioneer stammered, bowing so low his nose nearly touched the ground. "We are honored by your unexpected 1,000 gold pieces." Theron's deep voice cut through the groveling like a blade. A thin man in advisor's robes touched Theron's arm. "My king, please reconsider. This Omega and her pup are not worth 2,000, Theron stated, never taking his eyes off Seraphina. His nostrils flared slightly, as if trying to catch her scent through the market's foul air. The vampire lord hissed in frustration, but dared not challenge the Alpha King. No one else made a sound as Theron approached the platform, his presence growing stronger with each step. Seraphina felt her wolf respond strangely, not with fear, but with an inexplicable yearning to be closer. 5,000 gold pieces, Theron announced. Any who wish to challenge my claim may do so now. His tone made it clear that challenging him would be suicide. The auctioneer nearly fell over himself, declaring the sale final. Sold to His Majesty King Theron. The crowd parted like water as Theron mounted the platform. Up close, his power was overwhelming, yet Seraphina felt none of the crushing pressure affecting everyone else. Even Luna remained calm, her tiny hand reaching toward the Alpha King with unusual interest. "Bring them to my carriage," Theron ordered his guards. "Carefully." His expression remained unreadable, but his next words carried an edge of threat. "If any harm comes to them during the transfer, you will answer to me personally." The guards rushed to obey, one offering Seraphina his cloak while another cleared a path through the stunned audience. As they led her past Theron, Seraphina caught a glimpse of something beneath his controlled facade, a flash of confusion, wonder, and protective fury that made her wolf tremble with recognition. But recognition of what? She was too exhausted to understand. The last thing Seraphina saw before her legs finally gave out was Theron's massive form moving to catch her, his touch surprisingly gentle as darkness claimed her consciousness. The royal carriage swayed gently through the night, its enchanted wheels barely making a sound on the forest path. Seraphina huddled in a corner of the plush interior, cradling Luna close, certain each moment would be their last. Though King Theron had saved them from the Shadow Market, she'd heard tales of alphas who bought wolves only to hunt them for sport. Her fears shifted to confusion when the carriage stopped and an elderly female healer climbed aboard. The woman's kind eyes widened at Seraphina's condition. "Your Majesty, she needs immediate attention. The birthing wounds are infected," the healer reported, already opening her medicine bag. Treat her, Theron commanded. Then, to Seraphina's utter shock, he held out his massive hands. I will hold the pup while you receive care. Seraphina hesitated, her arms tightening around Luna instinctively, but there was no threat in the Alpha King's amber gaze, only patience and something that looked remarkably like concern. I give you my word, no harm will come to her, Theron said softly. With trembling arms, Seraphina surrendered her daughter. Luna, usually fussy with strangers, settled contentedly in Theron's careful hold. The mighty Alpha King cradled the tiny infant with surprising gentleness, his expression softening as she gripped his finger. The healer worked quickly, cleaning Seraphina's wounds and applying healing salves. The infection is severe, but we caught it in time, she muttered. Rest and proper care will see you recovered within days. Seraphina barely heard her, too captivated by the sight of Luna sleeping peacefully in King Theron's arms. No one had ever handled her daughter with such care, not even Marcus during the brief moments he'd bothered to acknowledge her existence. Dawn painted the sky in gentle pinks and golds as they arrived at Moonstone Palace. Seraphina gasped at her first sight of the legendary stronghold. Gleaming white towers stretched toward the heavens, their surfaces sparkling with embedded moonstone crystals. Gardens and training grounds spread across the vast grounds, while guards in royal colors patrolled the imposing walls. Your Majesty, a tall, dark-haired man approached as they exited the carriage. This must be Dimitri, the king's beta, known throughout the kingdoms for his loyalty and strategic mind. The council awaits your report on the border inspection. They're quite concerned about your unexpected detour to the shadow market. The council can wait, Theron stated firmly, still holding Luna while servants helped the weakened Seraphina down from the carriage. First, we must settle our new healer. Healer? Dimitri's eyebrows rose as he studied Seraphina. Yes, she has untrained healing abilities. I can sense them. She will serve in the palace infirmary once recovered. Theron's tone left no room for argument. Prepare chambers in the guest wing, with an adjoining nursery for her pup. Dimitri's surprise was evident, but he quickly schooled his features. At once, Your Majesty. Seraphina's legs wobbled as she followed a servant through marble hallways, decorated with rich tapestries and ancient weapons. This couldn't be real. Surely she'd wake up back in the slave wagon, these moments of kindness nothing but fever dreams. But the chambers she was led to were very real. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating a sitting room furnished with comfortable chairs and loaded bookshelves. The bedroom held a massive four-poster bed with silk sheets, while the adjoining nursery was already equipped with a beautifully carved crib and changing table. These rooms, there must be some mistake, Seraphina whispered. No mistake, Theron replied from the doorway, where he'd followed with Luna. You will serve this pack with your healing gift, and you will do so in comfort and safety. Both you and your daughter are under my protection now. The kindness in his voice, so unexpected from the feared Alpha King, broke something inside her. Tears spilled down Seraphina's cheeks as days of fear, pain, and desperate hope overwhelmed her. Theron awkwardly patted her shoulder, clearly unpracticed at offering comfort, but Luna chose that moment to grab his finger again, her tiny grip surprisingly strong. The mighty Alpha King's stern facade cracked further as he smiled down at the infant. Later that evening, as Seraphina settled Luna into her new crib, voices drifted up from the courtyard below. Can you believe the king bought a slave wolf? One servant whispered. And giving her guest chambers of all things. Princess Cassandra won't like that when she arrives for the wedding. 3 weeks until the full moon ceremony, another replied. The northern princess has waited 2 centuries to become queen. She won't let some Omega healer threaten her position. Seraphina's heart sank as she absorbed this news. Of course the king was promised to another, one worthy of his station. She was merely a servant he'd rescued on a whim. Still, as she watched Luna sleeping peacefully in her fine new crib, she couldn't help feeling grateful for whatever twist of fate had brought them to this place, even temporarily. The healing wing of Moonstone Palace hummed with quiet energy as Seraphina moved between beds, her gentle hands glowing with newfound power. What once exhausted her now flowed effortlessly, broken bones knitting together, deep gashes closing without scars, fever-racked bodies cooling under her touch. Remarkable, muttered the elderly head healer, watching Seraphina heal a warrior's compound fracture in minutes instead of months. In my 50 years of service, I've never seen such natural talent. Seraphina blushed at the praise, still unused to kind words. Luna gurgled happily from her cushioned basket nearby, somehow knowing her mother's joy. The infant had become the unofficial mascot of the healing wing, her presence mysteriously soothing to even the most agitated patients. King Theron's daily visits had become so regular that no one questioned his presence anymore. Though he claimed to check on injured warriors, his amber gaze followed Seraphina's movements, while his massive frame somehow always ended up near Luna's basket. "She's growing stronger," Theron observed one afternoon, letting Luna grip his finger while Seraphina organized healing supplies. "Just like her mother." "Your Majesty is too kind," Seraphina murmured, fighting the warmth that bloomed in her chest at his words. "Theron," he corrected softly. "When we're not in formal settings, please call me Theron." Before Seraphina could respond, a guard burst in with a bleeding palm, the result of a training accident. Theron stepped back, allowing her to work, but his eyes never left her hands as they glowed with healing light. "Wait," he said suddenly. "Let me see how you do this." He extended his own palm, revealing a deep cut from a morning sparring session. Seraphina hesitated before taking his massive hand in her smaller ones. The moment their skin touched, an electric current seemed to surge between them. Her healing power flared brighter than ever, the wound sealing instantly, but neither moved to break contact, both transfixed by the unexpected connection humming through their joined hands. The spell shattered as the infirmary doors burst open with a bang. A stunning woman swept in, surrounded by an entourage of finely dressed wolves. Her beauty was devastating, all ice-blonde hair and perfect features, but her blue eyes held winter's chill. "So this is where you've been hiding, my love," Princess Cassandra purred, her gaze flickering dismissively over Seraphina's simple healer's dress. "Among the charity cases?" Theron's hand dropped from Seraphina's as he turned to face his betrothed. "Cassandra, you're early." "I couldn't wait another week to see you." She pressed against him possessively, though her sharp eyes remained fixed on Seraphina. "Though I must question why a used breeder works so close to the king. Surely there are more appropriate healers available?" Each word landed like a slap. Seraphina kept her eyes downcast, fighting tears as whispers rippled through Cassandra's entourage. She felt Theron's muscles tense, saw his jaw clench, but he remained silent. What could he say without raising dangerous questions about his interest in a lowly healer? "I should check on my other patients," Seraphina whispered, moving to retreat with Luna. "Oh yes, run along with your leftover," Cassandra smiled coldly. "I need to discuss wedding details with my future husband." That night, as Seraphina prepared Luna for bed, her chamber door flew open. Princess Cassandra glided in, dismissing her guards with a wave. "Let's speak plainly," she said, her beautiful features hardened with threat. "I've worked too hard and waited too long to let some discarded Omega ruin everything. Your Highness, I would never—" "Save it. I see how he looks at you, how often he visits. Did you think no one would notice?" Cassandra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "I know all about you, Seraphina." "About Marcus. One word from me and your former mate would be very interested to learn where his runaway breeder is hiding." Ice flooded Seraphina's veins at Marcus's name. Luna whimpered in her crib, sensing her mother's distress. "Stay away from Theron," Cassandra continued. "Stick to healing common wolves and remember your place. Otherwise—" Her smile turned cruel. "Well, I hear Marcus has only grown more violent since you left. It would be a shame if he learned about your daughter's existence." With that parting threat, the princess swept out, leaving Seraphina trembling beside Luna's crib. She gathered her daughter close, breathing in her sweet scent as tears fell freely. The brief warmth and safety she'd found in the palace now felt like a cruel dream, shattered by the cold reality of her position and the danger her growing connection with Theron posed to them both. Seraphina's fingers traced the dusty spines of ancient healing texts in the palace library's furthest corner. 2 days remained until the Blood Moon Festival, and she hoped to find stronger healing techniques to prove her worth before Cassandra's wedding celebrations began. A leather-bound tome caught her eye, its pages brittle with age. As she carefully opened it, a loose page fluttered to the floor. The yellowed parchment contained an illustration of a female wolf surrounded by moonlight, with text describing the original Luna's prophecy. Seraphina's heart quickened as she read about a legendary female wolf destined to be born with a crescent birthmark. This chosen one would either unite all packs under a new era of peace or bring about their destruction. Her hands trembled as she recalled the distinctive mark on her daughter's shoulder, the exact crescent shape detailed in the ancient text. "It can't be," she whispered, scanning the pages with growing urgency. The prophecy spoke of a child born during a celestial alignment, just as Luna had been. Every detail matched her daughter perfectly. Found something interesting? Theron's deep voice startled her. She hadn't heard him approach in the narrow space between towering shelves. He stood so close she could feel the heat radiating from his powerful frame. I was just researching healing techniques, she said quickly, trying to close the book, but Theron's hand covered hers, stopping her. You're trembling, he observed softly. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, sending sparks of electricity through her skin. The confined space seemed to magnify their proximity. Seraphina's wolf stirred restlessly, reaching for something she'd never felt with Marcus, a soul-deep recognition that both thrilled and terrified her. Theron, she breathed, unable to step back, unable to look away from his amber eyes that had darkened with unmistakable hunger. He moved closer, backing her gently against the bookshelf. I've tried to stay away, he confessed, his voice rough, to do my duty, but every time I'm near you, I feel it too, Seraphina whispered. The admission broke something in Theron. His lips crashed against hers, desperate and demanding. Seraphina melted into the kiss, her hands clutching his shoulders as years of loneliness and fear dissolved in the heat between them. This was nothing like Marcus's possessive claims. This was coming home, finding a piece of herself she never knew was missing. Theron growled softly, deepening the kiss as his hands tangled in her hair. The ancient book fell forgotten to the floor as passion consumed them both. For one perfect moment, the world narrowed to just this, their shared breath, racing hearts, and the undeniable pull drawing them together. Then Theron wrenched himself away, chest heaving. This is impossible, he said hoarsely. You're already mated? I'm promised to Cassandra. The alliance ... I know, Seraphina touched her tingling lips, but I've never felt anything like this. With Marcus, there was only fear and obligation. This feels like a true mate bond, Theron finished, raking his hands through his hair in frustration. But that's impossible. Wolves only have one mate. Unless something about this is unprecedented, Seraphina suggested quietly, thinking of the prophecy she'd just discovered. Theron stepped closer again, unable to resist the pull between them. I feel you, he admitted, in my soul. My wolf recognizes you in a way that defies everything I know about mate bonds, but my kingdom needs this alliance with Cassandra's pack. Without it, Your Majesty! Dimitri's urgent whisper cut through the tension. The beta appeared at the end of the shelf, his expression apologetic but serious. Princess Cassandra is searching for you. She's heading this way. Theron cursed softly, his hands clenching into fists. We'll continue this discussion later, he promised Seraphina, his eyes intense with unspoken emotions. As he strode away, Seraphina sagged against the bookshelf, her heart pounding. She looked down at the fallen prophecy book, Luna's crescent birthmark weighing heavily on her mind. Everything was changing. Her daughter's destiny, this impossible connection with Theron, the approaching wedding that threatened to destroy it all. Dimitri lingered for a moment, his keen eyes taking in her flushed face and the scattered books. Be careful, he warned quietly before following his king. Through the palace's grand windows, the blood moon cast an ethereal crimson glow across the festival grounds. Seraphina stood at her assigned post near the tournament arena, her healer's kit ready as warriors clashed in ceremonial battles. The familiar work kept her hands busy, but couldn't stop her heart from aching each time Cassandra appeared with Theron. The princess was resplendent in a silver gown that sparkled like starlight, commanding attention as she moved through the crowd on Theron's arm. Yet Seraphina noticed how the king maintained a careful distance, never quite touching Cassandra despite their proximity. His face remained mask-like, showing none of the warmth she'd glimpsed in private moments. Another fighter down, called a guard, bringing in a wolf with a gashed arm. Seraphina focused on her work, grateful for the distraction. Still, her awareness of Theron remained acute, like a compass needle forever drawing north. As midnight approached, couples began gathering for the traditional mate bond renewal ceremony. The blood moon was said to strengthen such bonds, making them unbreakable. Seraphina tried to fade into the shadows but found herself trapped by Theron's intense gaze across the crowd. Even with Cassandra at his side, his eyes sought only her. The pull between them became unbearable. When Theron subtly tilted his head toward the garden path, Seraphina found herself following minutes later, her feet carrying her without conscious thought. The blood moon painted the roses crimson as she found him waiting in a secluded alcove. I couldn't stay away. Theron admitted roughly, reaching for her hands. Every minute pretending with her while you're so close. We shouldn't, Seraphina whispered even as she stepped closer. Your kingdom needs this alliance. My kingdom needs a true queen. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. I've had my scholars researching your situation with Marcus. There's no record of a proper mating ceremony ever being performed. Hope fluttered in Seraphina's chest. What does that mean? It means his claim on you may not be legally binding? Theron's eyes blazed with intensity. He treated you as property, not a mate. Under pack law, that could invalidate any bond that might have formed. But Cassandra is a political arrangement I agreed to before I found you? He cupped her face in his hands. Before I knew what a true mate bond could feel like. Seraphina, I love you. My wolf has never responded to anyone the way it does to you. Tears spilled down her cheeks as years of pain and loneliness cracked open. I love you too, she confessed. So much it terrifies me. Theron pulled her into his arms and their wolves surged forward, reaching for each other with desperate need. His lips found hers as the blood moon's light bathed them in crimson radiance. The mate bond began to form between them, a golden thread of pure belonging weaving their souls together. Just as the bond was about to seal, a piercing scream shattered the night. They jerked apart as Cassandra's voice rang out from the nearby courtyard. Rogues! Help! I've been attacked! They rushed to find the princess sprawled dramatically on the ground, surrounded by concerned guests, but Seraphina's healer's eyes noted the lack of real injuries. No blood, no torn clothing, nothing to suggest an actual attack. Theron had no choice but to play his public role. He helped Cassandra up, asking about her attackers while guards searched the grounds. The princess clung to him, trembling convincingly as she described mysterious shadows and glowing eyes. Seraphina began backing away, her heart heavy, but Cassandra's cold eyes found her over Theron's shoulder. The princess detached herself just long enough to brush past Seraphina, whispering words that turned her blood to ice. I've sent for Marcus. Your former mate will arrive tomorrow to reclaim his property. Enjoy your last night of freedom. Seraphina stumbled back, terror clawing at her throat. She watched Theron being drawn away by his duties, their near-completed bond aching like an open wound between them. The blood moon seemed to mock her now, its light no longer promising love's triumph, but heralding the return of her darkest nightmare. Music and laughter continued around her, but Seraphina could only hear her own panicked heartbeat. Marcus was coming, after everything she'd built here, after finding real love with Theron. Her past was rushing back to destroy it all. She wrapped her arms around herself, thinking of Luna sleeping safely in their chambers, unaware that their world was about to shatter once again. The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard as Marcus strode through the gates, his arrogant smirk visible even from a distance. Seraphina clutched Luna closer to her chest, trembling as her former mate approached with a thick scroll in his hands. King Theron stood protectively in front of them, his powerful frame rigid with tension. I've come to collect my property, Marcus announced, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. He unfurled the scroll with theatrical flair. These documents prove my legitimate claim to both the female and her offspring under ancient pack law. Theron's eyes blazed amber. Seraphina is under my protection now. Any claim you had was forfeit when you sold her to slavers. Actually, Marcus's smile widened. The law specifically allows for temporary transfer of property for monetary gain. I never formally released my claim. He gestured to 3 wolves who stepped forward from his entourage. These witnesses were present at our mating ceremony 5 years ago. They'll testify to the legitimacy of our bond. The palace pack court quickly convened, elderly wolves in formal robes examining the documents, while the witnesses swore to their accounts. Seraphina's heart pounded as she finally found her voice. He never completed the ritual properly, she cried out, drawing all eyes to her. A true mating bond requires both wolves to mark each other. Marcus marked me, but he never allowed me to mark him in return. The bond was never sealed. The court members exchanged troubled looks, but the eldest spoke gravely. Without physical proof of this irregularity, we must honor the documented claim. The witness's testimony supports a legitimate ceremony was performed. No, Seraphina whispered as palace guards reluctantly moved toward her. Please, no. Luna, sensing her mother's distress, let out a piercing wail. Suddenly, a blast of silver energy erupted from the infant's tiny body, throwing everyone back several feet. The courtyard fell silent as Luna's eyes glowed with unmistakable alpha power, far stronger than any normal wolf pup could possess. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus recovered first, his expression turning calculating. You see? The child has exceptional power, my bloodline manifesting. This only proves I should claim them both. Such potential must be properly guided. The threat in his voice made Seraphina sick, but before Theron could respond, Princess Cassandra glided forward, her timing suspiciously perfect. Speaking of bloodlines, she announced with a triumphant smile, I have joyous news to share. She placed a hand on her stomach, turning to Theron. My love, I'm carrying your heir. The physician confirmed it this morning, conceived during your diplomatic visit to the Northern Territories 3 weeks ago. The color drained from Theron's face. Seraphina saw the trap closing around him. Denying the pregnancy would mean admitting he'd been celibate, waiting for his true mate. Such a revelation would spark a political crisis, especially with the alliance hanging in balance. I doubt. Theron's usual commanding presence faltered as he wrestled with the impossible situation. Marcus seized the moment of confusion, grabbing Seraphina's arm roughly. The court has ruled. Time to come home, little breeder. He yanked her toward the gates as Luna whimpered in her arms. Wait. Seraphina twisted in his grip, catching Theron's anguished gaze. With Marcus pulling her away, she could only manage to whisper urgently, the crescent mark on her shoulder. Check the ancient texts about the original Luna. Theron's eyes widened with understanding, but he remained frozen in place, trapped by duty and deception, as Marcus dragged Seraphina and Luna from the courtyard. Cassandra pressed against his side possessively, her satisfied smile visible as Seraphina glanced back one last time. The palace gates closed with a final devastating boom. Seraphina's tears fell silently as Marcus shoved her into a waiting carriage, her brief taste of freedom and true love crumbling to ashes. Through the window, she watched the magnificent Moonstone Palace disappear into the distance, taking with it all her hopes for a better life for herself and Luna. In the carriage, Marcus gripped her chin painfully. You caused me quite a bit of trouble running away like that. Don't worry, I'll make sure you never forget your place again. His cold eyes fell on Luna. And this time, I'll make proper use of that power you've been hiding. Seraphina said nothing, focusing only on holding Luna close and trying not to shatter completely. She could still feel the ghost of her nearly formed mate bond with Theron aching in her chest, a bittersweet reminder of everything she'd found and lost in those few precious weeks of freedom. Marcus paced the opulent guest chamber like a caged animal, his eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction as he watched Seraphina huddle in the corner with Luna. The temporary quarters in the palace, granted to him as a courtesy for the upcoming royal wedding, felt more like a prison cell to Seraphina. Such power in such a tiny package, Marcus sneered, pausing to leer at the sleeping infant. The bidding war alone will make me wealthy beyond imagination. Dark witches, rival packs, even vampire lords. They'll all pay handsomely once her full power manifests. Seraphina clutched Luna tighter, her voice trembling. She's your daughter. How can you even think of selling her? My daughter? Marcus laughed coldly. She's a tool, nothing more. One that will finally give me the power I deserve. He grabbed Seraphina's chin, forcing her to look at him. And you can thank Morgana for helping me see her true value. Morgana, Seraphina whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. The most powerful dark witch in these territories. Marcus's eyes glittered with malice. She's the one who recognized the signs, who told me about our little Luna's special destiny. Tomorrow night during the new moon, she'll perform a ritual to harvest that power. He released Seraphina's face with a rough shove. Then I won't need either of you anymore. In the palace library, King Theron frantically searched through dusty archives, his usual composure shattered by urgency. Eric, his most trusted warrior, stood guard at the door while the king pored over ancient records. Here. Theron's voice rang out as he pulled a crumbling document from a forgotten shelf. Marriage records from the Eastern Territories. His eyes scanned the yellowed parchment, jaw tightening. Marcus was already pledged to another she-wolf during the time he claims to have mated Seraphina. The documents he presented to the court were forged. Eric moved closer, examining the evidence. This could invalidate his claim on her completely. Keep searching, Theron ordered, pulling more records. There has to be more. He froze, staring at a different document. These are intelligence reports about Cassandra's movements before she arrived here. The king's hands shook with rage as he read. She's been meeting secretly with our enemies from the Northern Pack. There are detailed plans. His voice grew dangerous. She intends to have me assassinated after our marriage, to claim both kingdoms for herself. My king, Eric's voice was grim. Allow me to track her movements, gather more evidence. Theron nodded sharply. Follow her, but don't be seen. If she realizes we know... He left the threat unspoken. As darkness fell over the palace, Seraphina watched Marcus finally succumb to his wine-induced sleep. Her mind raced with everything she'd learned about Morgana and the ritual planned for tomorrow night. She had to warn Theron, had to save Luna, even if she couldn't save herself. A soft knock at the chamber door made her heart leap. Anna, a kind-hearted servant she'd befriended during her brief time in the palace, slipped inside with fresh linens. Please, Seraphina whispered, pressing a hastily scribbled note into the servant's hand. Get this to King Theron. Luna's life depends on it. Anna nodded, understanding the gravity in Seraphina's eyes. She tucked the note into her apron and hurried away while Marcus's snores still filled the room. The message was desperate but clear. Morgana plans to steal Luna's power during tomorrow's new moon ritual. Marcus will sell her afterward. I beg you, save our daughter, even if you can't save me. The original Luna's power must be protected. S. double quote. In his private study, Theron gripped the note until his knuckles turned white, his wolf raging beneath his skin at the thought of Luna and Seraphina in danger. The pieces were falling into place. Cassandra's convenient pregnancy announcement, Marcus's sudden appearance with forged documents, and now a dark ritual planned for their innocent daughter. Time was running out. The new moon would rise tomorrow night, and with it the threat to everything he held dear. But now he had proof of Marcus's deception and Cassandra's treachery. The question was whether he could act on it fast enough to save his true mate and their extraordinary child. The new moon cast an eerie darkness over the palace grounds as Marcus dragged Seraphina through hidden tunnels, his iron grip bruising her arm while she clutched Luna protectively to her chest. The baby remained unnaturally quiet, as if sensing the grave danger they faced. Here we are, Marcus sneered, shoving them into a circular chamber deep beneath the palace. Ancient stone walls flickered with torchlight, revealing intricate symbols carved into every surface. At the center stood a black marble altar where Morgana waited. The dark witch's withered face split into a predatory smile. Bring the child, she commanded, her voice like grinding bones. Silver chains clinked as she held them up. No. Seraphina fought wildly as Marcus wrenched Luna from her arms. The chains burned into her flesh as Morgana bound her, the silver leaving angry red welts wherever it touched her skin. She struggled against the restraints, watching helplessly as Marcus placed their daughter on the cold altar. Morgana began chanting in an ancient tongue, dark energy crackling through the air. With each word, Luna whimpered, and something deep inside Seraphina snapped. White-hot rage flooded her veins, different from anything she'd ever felt before. Her eyes flashed brilliant gold, startling Marcus. Impossible, he breathed. You're just an Omega. With a primal roar, Seraphina flexed against the chains. The silver links, which should have weakened her, shattered like glass. Raw power coursed through her body as she lunged for Luna. The chamber doors burst open with an earth-shaking crash. King Theron charged in with his elite warriors, his massive frame filling the doorway. His amber eyes blazed with fury as he took in the scene. "Stop the ritual!" Morgana shrieked. "Kill them all!" Marcus's followers emerged from the shadows, clashing with Theron's warriors. The underground chamber erupted into chaos as wolves fought and died in the flickering torchlight. Morgana's cruel laugh cut through the battle sounds. How fitting, the last royal lichen delivered right to us. Her words froze everyone in place. "What did you say?" Theron demanded, his voice dangerous. The witch circled Seraphina like a vulture. "Oh, yes, I sensed it the moment she entered. That dormant bloodline hidden for generations. The only living alpha female in existence?" She cackled. "Why do you think your mate bond is so strong? Two pure alpha bloodlines, drawn together by fate itself." Marcus's face contorted with rage. "You're lying. She's nothing but a worthless Omega I claimed." With a savage roar, he shifted into his wolf form. Dark brown and massive, but nothing compared to what happened next. Something ancient awakened in Seraphina's blood. Her body moved on instinct as silver light engulfed her. Where there should have been pain and confusion for an untrained shifter, there was only power and certainty. In moments, a magnificent silver wolf stood in her place, larger than any female wolf anyone had ever seen. The false bond Marcus had forced on her years ago shattered completely, leaving her truly free for the first time. She met his attack with ferocious strength, her newfound power matching his experienced brutality. Around them, the battle raged. Theron fought his way toward the altar, where Luna lay crying, her wails growing stronger with each passing moment. Morgana raised her hands, dark magic swirling as she tried to complete the ritual. Luna's cries reached a fever pitch. Blinding white light erupted from her tiny form, shattering the witch's dark magic like a mirror struck by lightning. The magical backlash hit Morgana full force, her body crumbling to ash as her own power turned against her. The explosion threw Marcus against the stone wall with devastating force. He shifted back to human form, broken and bleeding, his eyes wide with disbelief as he stared at the silver wolf who had once been his victim. Seraphina shifted back smoothly, standing tall despite her tattered clothes. Power radiated from her as she swept Luna into her arms, her gold eyes glowing with protective fury. The remaining fighters backed away, bowing instinctively to the newly awakened alpha female. Theron moved to her side, his presence strengthening rather than overshadowing her own. Together, they formed an image of raw power and authority that left no doubt about Seraphina's true heritage. The last royal lichen had finally awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. The first rays of dawn crept through the palace windows, casting long shadows across the underground chamber now littered with the aftermath of battle. Marcus lay against the cold stone wall, blood seeping from wounds that even his werewolf healing couldn't mend. His breathing came in ragged gasps as Dimitri and several pack witnesses hurried into the chamber, summoned by urgent messengers. Seraphina stood tall, Luna sleeping peacefully in her arms despite the chaos they'd just endured. Theron remained protectively at her side, his powerful presence a stark contrast to the dying wolf before them. "I need to confess," Marcus wheezed, his voice barely above a whisper. The pack court members leaned forward, straining to hear his words. "I never truly mated her." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves as Marcus continued, blood staining his lips. "Used a binding spell from Morgana. Needed her healing powers, but couldn't lower myself to properly mate a commoner." The pack's chief elder stepped forward, his aged face grave. "You deny performing the sacred mating ritual with Seraphina?" "Never marked each other." Marcus coughed violently. "Just wanted to own her power." His eyes glazed over, fixed on something distant. The spell was enough to control her, without the mate bond. The confession echoed through the chamber as Marcus drew his final breath, his body going still. The pack court scribes frantically recorded every word, their quills scratching against a parchment in the heavy silence. By pack law, this confession, witnessed and recorded, nullifies any claim over Seraphina, the chief elder declared solemnly. She is legally free. Relief washed over Seraphina's face as the weight of 5 years of false bondage lifted from her shoulders. Theron's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining as hope bloomed between them. But the moment of peace shattered as boots thundered down the stone steps. Princess Cassandra swept into the chamber, flanked by warriors bearing the Northern Pack's insignia. Her beautiful face twisted with cold fury as she surveyed the scene. "What is this?" she demanded, her voice sharp as a blade. "My ally Marcus lies dead, and the king stands hand in hand with a former slave?" Her eyes narrowed at Theron. "You betray our alliance for this?" Eric emerged from the shadows, clutching a leather folder. "My king, I have the evidence you requested." He presented several documents to the pack court. "These detail Princess Cassandra's secret meetings with your kingdom's enemies. She planned to assassinate you after the marriage to claim both territories." Cassandra's laugh cut through the tense air. "Obvious forgeries. Where is your proof these documents are authentic?" She turned to address the pack elders directly. "The Northern Pack's armies stand ready. Will you risk war over such flimsy accusations?" The elders shifted uncomfortably, exchanging worried glances. The threat of war hung heavy in the air as they whispered among themselves. "You want proof?" Cassandra's voice rang out. "Then let us settle this the ancient way." She lifted her chin defiantly. "I challenge Seraphina to single combat for the right to be Theron's queen. By pack law, any she-wolf may fight for an alpha's mate position." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The ancient law was rarely invoked, but its validity couldn't be denied. "No," Theron growled, stepping in front of Seraphina. "I won't allow this." "You have no choice," Cassandra smirked, "unless you want to explain to your people why you'd rather face war than honor our traditions." Serafina gently handed Luna to Dimitri, who cradled the baby with surprising tenderness. She stepped forward, her golden eyes meeting Cassandra's cold stare. "I accept your challenge," Serafina declared firmly. The newly awakened power of her royal Lycan bloodline hummed through her veins, giving her words weight and authority. "Serafina, please." Theron reached for her, his face tight with concern. "You don't have to do this." She turned to him, her expression resolute. "Yes, I do. For Luna's future, for the truth, for all of us." She squeezed his hand. "This is the only way to end her threats once and for all." The pack elders nodded gravely, officially acknowledging the challenge. Cassandra's smug smile couldn't quite hide the flash of uncertainty in her eyes as she beheld Serafina's quiet confidence. The combat arena filled quickly as word of the challenge spread through the palace. Torches blazed around the circular fighting ground, casting dramatic shadows across the packed stands where hundreds of wolves gathered to witness this ancient ritual of combat. The scent of anticipation and tension hung thick in the air. Cassandra stood at one end of the arena, her battle-trained body coiled like a spring. She wore traditional fighting leathers that showed off her perfectly honed muscles, the result of a lifetime of warrior training. Her confident smirk never wavered as she stretched, each movement precise and practiced. At the opposite end, Serafina took slow, steady breaths. Though her simple tunic was modest compared to Cassandra's elaborate gear, there was an unmistakable air of quiet power about her. Her golden eyes occasionally flicked to where Theron stood with Luna in his arms, their presence giving her strength. "The terms of combat are clear," the chief elder announced, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. "The fight continues until submission or unconsciousness. The victor claims the right to be queen and mate to King Theron." Cassandra struck the moment the elder signaled the start, her body transforming mid-leap into a sleek black wolf. Her claws raked across Serafina's shoulder before she could fully shift, drawing first blood. The crowd gasped at the savage opening move. "How does it feel, little breeder?" Cassandra taunted through their pack mind link, circling Serafina's silver wolf form. "To fight someone who wasn't discarded like trash?" Serafina didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, she focused on her wolf, letting instinct guide her newly awakened powers. When Cassandra lunged again, Serafina met her with surprising speed, their bodies colliding in a fierce tangle of fur and fangs. What Serafina lacked in formal training, she made up for with raw power and a mother's desperate fury. Each attack was fueled by memories, Marcus's cruelty, Luna's cries, Theron's gentle touch. Her royal Lycan blood sang through her veins, lending her strength she never knew she possessed. The fight intensified as both wolves landed punishing blows. Cassandra's experience showed in her precise attacks, but she couldn't seem to gain a decisive advantage over Serafina's natural power. Frustration began to show in the princess's increasingly wild attacks. Suddenly, Cassandra shifted back to human form, pulling a hidden silver dagger from her boot. The crowd erupted in angry shouts at this dishonorable move. Weapons were strictly forbidden in traditional combat. Before anyone could intervene, she slashed at Serafina's throat. Time seemed to slow as Serafina's human hand shot up, catching the blade. The silver that should have burned her flesh on contact did nothing. Cassandra's eyes widened in shock as she realized what this meant. Only royal Lycan blood carried immunity to silver. Taking advantage of Cassandra's momentary surprise, Serafina twisted the blade away and swept the princess's legs out from under her. They crashed to the ground with Serafina on top, pinning Cassandra firmly beneath her. "Yield," Serafina commanded, her voice carrying the weight of an alpha's authority. "Never," Cassandra spat, though fear had replaced the arrogance in her eyes. Serafina pressed harder, her knee digging into Cassandra's sternum. "Tell them the truth about the pregnancy, now." The pressure increased until Cassandra finally broke. "Fine," she screamed, her words echoing through the silent arena. "I'm not carrying Theron's child. The father is Alpha Victor from the Shadow Plains Pack. He promised me power, promised we would rule both territories once Theron was dead." Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd. The Northern Pack warriors who had accompanied Cassandra stepped forward, their faces dark with anger at their princess's treachery. "Princess Cassandra," their captain announced grimly, "by your own confession, you are guilty of treason against both packs. You conspired with our enemies and attempted to murder your intended mate." Two warriors pulled Cassandra to her feet, binding her hands as she struggled and screamed curses. The disgraced princess was led away, her final hopes of power crumbling as her own pack arrested her for her crimes. Serafina stood in the center of the arena, victorious but humble. The crowd's cheers washed over her as Theron approached, Luna reaching for her mother with happy gurgles. As he drew near, their wolves recognized each other once again, the true mate bond humming between them stronger than ever. 3 days after Cassandra's defeat, the Moonstone Palace gleamed under the afternoon sun. Hundreds of pack alphas from across the territories gathered in the grand ceremonial hall, their powerful auras creating an almost tangible electricity in the air. Ancient tapestries depicting the moon goddess and her children adorned the walls, their silver threads catching the light. Seraphina stood before the assembled leaders, wearing a flowing white dress embedded with moonstones. The royal archivist had spent days confirming what her silver immunity had suggested. Her bloodline traced directly back to the moon goddess's original children, a lineage thought lost centuries ago. King Theron, resplendent in formal royal robes, addressed the gathering. Today we witness something our ancestors spoke of in prophecy, the return of a royal Lycan heir. His deep voice carried throughout the hall. The ancient tests have confirmed what her power already proved. Seraphina carries the blood of our first Alpha Queen. Luna cooed softly from her ceremonial cradle, drawing fond smiles from nearby pack members. The infant's presence seemed to fill the room with peaceful energy, even as Theron began the formal recognition rites. Just as Seraphina stepped forward to receive the royal mark, the windows exploded inward. Dozens of rouge wolves crashed through, led by a massive black wolf with hatred burning in his eyes. Alpha, victor of the Shadow Plains, father of Cassandra's unborn child. You imprisoned my mate. Victor's roar shook the foundations of the hall as he shifted to human form. Now you'll watch your precious ceremony turn into a bloodbath. Chaos erupted as the rogues attacked. Despite the many powerful alphas present, Victor's forces had come prepared with dark magic that seemed to drain their strength. Seraphina fought beside Theron, their movements naturally synchronized, but even their combined power struggled against the enhanced rogues. A rogue wolf lunged for Luna's cradle. The instant the threat came near, the infant's eyes snapped open, glowing with intense silver light. A wave of pure alpha power burst from her tiny form, so strong it drove every wolf in the hall to their knees. Every wolf except Seraphina and Theron. They stood together, untouched by Luna's power, their own energies responding and amplifying. Gold light poured from Theron, while silver radiance surrounded Seraphina, the two auras spiraling together in a brilliant display that illuminated the entire hall. Victor and his rogues scrambled backward, their dark magic shattered by the combined power of the true mates and their extraordinary daughter. "This is impossible," Victor shouted as he retreated. "No female should have this much power." "The old ways are changing," Seraphina declared, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of royal Lycan authority. The rogues fled, their attack thoroughly defeated by the family's united strength. As the dust settled, the visiting alphas rose slowly, their faces filled with awe. One by one, they bowed to Seraphina, acknowledging her not just as Theron's mate, but as his equal, a true Alpha Queen. That night, under the full moon's witness, Theron and Seraphina stood alone in the sacred grove. Their wolves emerged naturally, drawing them together with the pull of true mates. This time, there were no interruptions as they marked each other properly, their mate bond snapping into place with explosive force. The moment their bond completed, a pulse of power radiated outward across all pack territories. Wolves everywhere felt it, the return of balance between male and female alpha powers, just as the ancient prophecy had foretold. In their sacred grove, Theron and Seraphina held each other close, finally united as equals, while their daughter's happy gurgle echoed through the night. 6 months after the mate bond ceremony, the Moonstone Palace bustled with unprecedented activity. Seraphina moved through one of her newly established healing centers, watching with pride as wolves of all ranks trained together. Former Omegas worked alongside traditional pack healers, their combined abilities achieving remarkable results. "Your technique is perfect, Sarah," Seraphina praised a young Omega who had just successfully healed a warrior's broken arm. The girl beamed, standing taller despite her previous pack's dismissal of her healing gift. Through the window, Seraphina caught sight of Theron in the palace gardens, supervising Luna's crawling adventures. Their daughter had grown remarkably, her silver eyes tracking everything with unusual awareness. When Luna accidentally triggered her power these days, it manifested as gentle waves rather than overwhelming bursts, showing promising control even at her young age. The peaceful scene shattered as a guard burst into the healing center. "My queen, wolves from the Silver Moon Pack seek audience. They claim Marcus's sister Lydia leads them." Seraphina's heart clenched, memories of Marcus's cruelty flashing through her mind. She straightened her spine, touching the mate mark on her neck for reassurance. Alert King Theron. Have them escorted to the formal audience chamber." Minutes later, Seraphina entered the chamber beside Theron, who carried Luna protectively. Lydia stood with 3 other wolves, all bearing the distinctive silver-gray markings of Marcus's former pack. Unlike her brother's perpetual sneer, Lydia's face showed exhaustion and genuine remorse. "We come seeking sanctuary," Lydia announced, dropping to her knees, "and to right my brother's wrongs." She produced a leather-bound journal, its pages worn with use. "These are Marcus's private writings. They detail everything, his plots to overthrow our Alpha, the pack members he murdered to keep his plans secret. He was a monster long before he found you, Queen Seraphina." Theron's growl echoed through the chamber. "You expect us to believe you had no part in his schemes?" "I enabled him through my silence," Lydia admitted, her voice breaking. "When he killed our pack healer for discovering his first murder, I said nothing. Each death after that stained my soul darker. I'll testify before any pack council to ensure the truth is known." Before anyone could respond, the chamber doors swung open with supernatural force. An elderly woman entered, her white hair flowing like moonlight, her blind eyes somehow seeing everything. Everyone present felt the ancient power radiating from her, an oracle, one of the rare true seers among werewolves. "The child," she commanded, moving unerringly toward Luna. "Bring her to me." Seraphina and Theron exchanged glances, their mate bond humming with shared concern. Yet something in the oracle's presence commanded trust. Carefully, Theron placed Luna in the ancient wolf's arms. The oracle gasped as Luna touched her face, silver light dancing between them. "Neither destroyer nor savior," she proclaimed, her blind eyes glowing. "She is the bridge between what was and what must be, the choice maker whose power has already begun the great change." "What change?" Seraphina asked, stepping closer to her daughter. "Look around you, young queen. Your daughter's birth awakened what centuries of suppression buried. Female alphas emerge across all territories, their dormant bloodlines stirred by Luna's power. The old hierarchies crumble as balance returns." The oracle turned her glowing gaze to Lydia. "You felt it too, didn't you? The stirring of power once Marcus's false bonds broke?" Lydia nodded, rolling up her sleeve to reveal the faint markings of emerging alpha power. "I thought I was going mad. In our pack alone, 3 females have shown signs. The future spins on the choices this child will make," the oracle continued, returning Luna to her parents. "She will neither destroy nor save our kind through power alone, but through the wisdom to know when to use that power, and when to let others find their own strength." Seraphina held Luna close, feeling the truth of the oracle's words in her bones. Her daughter cooed softly, reaching for both her parents with complete trust. In that moment, the future seemed less frightening than exciting. A world where strength came in many forms, and where ancient prejudices gave way to new possibilities. The oracle turned to leave as suddenly as she had arrived, but paused at the chamber doors. The age of singular power ends. The time of balance begins. With those words, she vanished, leaving the assembled wolves to contemplate the profound changes already reshaping their world. The Moonstone Palace's grand ceremonial hall gleamed with thousands of crystal lights as wolves from every territory gathered for a historic moment. Banners representing all packs hung from soaring columns, their colors blending in unprecedented unity. At the center of it all stood an ornate silver throne, its twin already occupied by King Theron in his formal regalia. Seraphina waited in the antechamber, her heart thundering. The ceremonial gown she wore shimmered with moonstone beads, each one representing a pack that now supported her claim. Luna sat contentedly in her arms, dressed in a tiny silver dress that matched her eyes. "Ready, my love?" Theron's voice came through their mate bond, warm and reassuring. Taking a deep breath, Seraphina stepped forward as the great doors swung open. The assembled wolves rose as one, their collective power humming in the air. She walked the length of the hall with measured steps, Luna watching the crowd with curious eyes. As she approached the dais, Dimitri stepped forward with the ancient crown of the Alpha Queen, unworn for centuries, waiting for a true mate of royal blood. The silver circlet seemed to glow as he raised it. Just then, Luna squirmed in Seraphina's arms. "Down!" she demanded clearly, surprising everyone. Seraphina carefully set her daughter on her feet, and the entire hall held its breath as Luna took her very first steps, toddling between her parents with perfect balance. A murmur of awe rippled through the crowd. Many recognized it as a sign of blessing from the moon goddess herself. Theron beamed with pride as Seraphina knelt before him, Luna standing beside them both. His voice rang out clear and strong, By right of blood, by right of combat, and by right of the true mate bond, I crown you Seraphina Alpha Queen, of all packs, equal in power and authority to myself." As the crown settled on her head, Seraphina felt a surge of power. She rose and turned to face her people, not as a former Omega or a rescued slave, but as their queen. Her voice carried to every corner of the vast hall. "Today marks not just my coronation, but the dawn of a new age for all wolves," she declared. "From this day forward, no pack member shall be sold or discarded. No wolf shall be judged solely by their rank at birth. All matings must be mutual and complete. No more forced bonds or partial claims." She gestured to the visiting alphas. "We have already begun establishing sanctuaries throughout our territories for abused wolves. Every pack will maintain a healing center open to all who show the gift, regardless of their status." Theron stepped forward, taking her hand. "Let all witness that power flows equally between true mates," he added, their mate marks beginning to glow with golden light. "Strength lies not in dominance, but in balance." Together they raised their joined hands. The light from their mate marks grew until it filled the hall with silver and gold radiance. Then, starting with the royal pack and spreading outward, every wolf lifted their head and howled. The sound built and built, harmonizing in a way not heard since the days of the original Luna. The very walls seemed to vibrate with the power of their unity. As the howls faded, Luna clapped her hands in delight, her own small howl making everyone laugh. Other pups in the crowd joined in, and soon the formal ceremony dissolved into joyful celebration. Seraphina watched with tears in her eyes as Luna played with pups from different packs, none of them caring about rank or bloodline. Later that night, the royal family escaped to their private garden. Seraphina rested against Theron's chest, her enhanced healing sight allowing her to sense the tiny sparks of life growing within her. Twins, still too small for anyone else to detect. Luna sat in Theron's lap, sleepy but content under the star-filled sky. "Tell me the story again, Papa," Luna mumbled, fighting sleep. Theron smiled, cradling his daughter close. "Once there was a brave wolf named Seraphina, who changed our entire world. She taught us that true strength comes from the heart." Seraphina closed her eyes, letting her mate's voice wash over her. After years of abuse and fear, she was finally home, finally cherished as she had always deserved. In that moment, under the watching stars, she knew with absolute certainty that every trial had led her exactly where she was meant to be. If something today spoke to the part of you that still believes in love, stay a while. Subscribe. I'll be here again tomorrow with another story worth feeling.